Everyone, so today we are going to be learning how to cook a cheesy pasta and create a roux sauce. So before we start, you need to check that you've got everything health and safety wise sorted, so things like hair tied up, jewellery taken off, etc. So please make sure you have done that and that you're wearing an apron and you've washed your hands. Your first thing that you're going to do is, first of all, you need to weigh your ingredients at home. So the ingredients we need is 25 grams of margarine, 25 grams of plain flour, 250 millilitres of milk, and 100 grams of grated cheese. You need to grate the cheese at home. We also need 100 grams of pasta. You need to boil your pasta at home as well. When you're bringing in ingredients for cooking, please measure them out at home. So we're not doing any measuring in class, you are measuring them at home. So please remember that. When you're bringing them in, please make sure that you have got your name clearly marked on each of your ingredients and you've indicated what class you're in as well. Okay, so once you've gathered a tray and you've got all of your ingredients on there, the next thing you will do is make sure that your milk has been measured out to the correct amount. Now, I need 250 millilitres of milk, so I will just measure that out now. Like that. Okay, so we are going to be working first of all with our milk, and we're also going to be working with our margarine and our flour, which I've already put inside my saucepan. So you will need to put your butter or margarine, your flour and your milk in your saucepan. Now, when we're working on the hob and you're doing this in lessons, there's going to be lots of people using these other hobs. So be very aware that when you're completing this practical, your saucepan handle needs to be placed in the most suitable position for it. So here probably wouldn't be the best position because it's got the flame that's going to come up there. So we'd turn it to the side slightly so it's out of the way. So you will need to turn your hob on. I put it on sort of a medium heat. We can always then adjust that as needed. So we're going to turn on our piece of work. Now when you're stirring, make sure you're holding the saucepan with one hand and you are stirring with the other. So with this pasta sauce, we are effectively making a roux. Now with that, we need to make sure that we are constantly stirring our sauce, or else it's going to end up getting stuck to the bottom of the pan, which we don't want. So our butter is going to melt, and as it melts, the sauce should thicken. Make sure you're running your spoon all over the bottom of the pan so you're not missing any parts where your mixture might end up getting stuck. So you should be able to see now that the butter is melting and we're getting less lumps in there. So the lumps are currently bits of flour and there's still a couple of lumps of butter as well. So what we want to do is break those bits up so we don't end up with a lumpy pasta sauce. So you should be able to see that this is starting to thicken. So when I'm putting my wooden spoon around, it's leaving a mark. So what we want to get it to is a state where it sticks on the back of the spoon like that. So I'm just going to quickly try and get rid of any more of those lumps. And when I'm doing that, I might want to turn down the heat slightly. So you should be able to see now that has thickened. Then what you're going to do is go and get your cheese. So put it on a very low heat, or you can even take it back to your desk and put it on a pot stand if you would prefer. Now you are going to add half of your amount of cheese. So here I've got my cheese. You need half of that into this sauce. Remember that the pan is hot, so be very, very careful when you're doing this. And then what you want to do is melt your cheese into this sauce. So you might want to turn the heat up slightly in order for it to melt. So it's going lumpy at the moment, but you will see that when the cheese is melting, it will become a lot smoother. So that one there is pretty much melted in. Okay, once that's melted, you can then turn off the hob. Now from there, we are then going to start adding in our pasta. So now you're going to get your pasta and you are going to add that to your dish. Now remember, your pasta needs to be cooked at home. You're not cooking it at school at all. You are cooking it at home. So just remember that when you're doing that. I'd suggest bringing it in a Tupperware container marked with your name so you don't end up getting it muddled up with anybody else's, but then it's also in something that's secure and isn't going to leak, etc. So you need to then stir all of your sauce into the pasta like that. You will also need to bring in yourself a dish that can go in the oven. So this one here is an oven-proof dish. It's ceramic. It can go then straight into the oven to be cooked. You need to bring something that can go in the oven because our cheesy pasta is going to go in the oven to finish it. So if you're doing this at your desk, please make sure that you bring over with you a pot stand so your saucepan is not sitting on the hot surface. So now you're going to place your cheesy pasta into your oven-proof dish. Do so very carefully so you don't end up hurting yourself, burning yourself, or anybody else around you. Now when it's in your dish, spread it out and gather up any excess sauce. Like so, and then spread out the sauce in your dish. You don't need a massive dish because we're only doing this with 100 grams of pasta. If you've got any bits around the edges where your sauce has effectively touched those edge bits, try and wipe those up with a bit of kitchen towel. The reason we do that is because when we put this in the oven, it will burn on there. So effectively just go around the edge and make sure you've got all those bits that have just accidentally touched the top, like so. The next thing that you need to do is gathering the remainder of your cheese. You're just going to sprinkle this over the top, and this will end up melting in when we put this in the oven or under the grill. And it will give it a very nice sort of crispy top. Roughly like so. And that can now go into the oven or the grill. When you are placing your dish into the oven, make sure it's on a tray. If it's just you using the tray, make sure it's in the centre of that tray. But if we can fit more than one person's cheesy pasta on a tray, that's also brilliant, because we are quite limited with our oven space. So please be aware that when you are doing this, you might need to check around you to see if anybody else is at the same stage, or if their dish will fit on the same tray as yours. When you're putting it in and out of the oven, please make sure you use oven gloves so you do not end up burning yourself. We do not use tea towels, only oven gloves, so please remember that. Next, you need to run yourself a tap of hot soapy water. On the side where you have not got any equipment, here should be where you're putting any dirty dishes. On the draining board, which is over here, is where you should be putting dishes that are clean and need to be dried. With regards to your pans full of cheesy pasta and how the sauce is probably now stuck on, try and put some water in there as quickly as possible. So effectively what you want to do is fill that up with water. And then place that at the side of the sink just to soak, and that allows all of the bits within there to start coming off before we start getting the rest of the water dirty. So in here we need to run a bowl of warm soapy water. You only need a very small drop of washing up liquid. Now you don't have to wash up all of your own things, you can come up with a bit of a system at your sink. So work with about 3 to 4 people at each sink, and what you will do is you'll have one person that's going to wash up all of the dishes. We then need one person to dry up all of the dishes. We might need somebody to collect things that are dirty and place them at the side of the sink, and we need one person to be putting those things away. So get a good system in place at your sink to make it really fair and ensure that everything gets done as is needed to. So with the water, what I would do if I was you is wash up everything that doesn't have the sauce on first. So anything that doesn't have the sauce on, wash that up first, and then when those have been completed, then you can start washing up anything else. Now remember, you need to properly wash your pieces of equipment. It's not enough to just dip it in the sink and say, oh, it's clean. We need to properly wash each part of the equipment to ensure that they are clean for the next person, and I'm sure you'd like it next time when you come to cook that the equipment's clean for you. So place that upside down on the draining board like that, so that the water can then drain out of it. So with all of these pieces of equipment, wash the things that are not cheesy first, and then start washing the cheesy things. You might want to, when you've got your bowl, you might want to just sort of wash this around first. You might want to tip some of this down the sink. But remember, we don't really want massive chunks, so try and put as much of this sauce into your dish as possible, so then you don't have quite so much to clean up. When it comes to washing up your pan, please make sure that it's thoroughly clean. Don't end up leaving any bits of cheese sauce in the bottom. If it's burnt on, you will need to try and get it off as best you can, so you might need to use a scourer if there's one available to you. You might need to soak your pan for a bit longer, or change out the water, or use a bit of running water on it. So please make sure that when you're doing this, it's really, really clean for when the next person comes to use it. Make sure that in your team, when you're drying things, they are all thoroughly clean. Do not leave anything that has not been dried. Do not put it back in the cupboard until it's fully dry, or else it's going to get everything wet in that cupboard, and it's not going to be very pleasant once you come to use it next time. When all of your equipment has been washed, squeeze out your sponge so it's dry and leave it on the top. Empty out all of your water. Now you need to check that your sink is thoroughly clean all around. So you might need to use a cloth or a sponge to just wipe around and check that everything's clean. If there's any bits that haven't either gone down the sink or need picking out, you will need to rinse that so that the sink is clean for the next person to use. When you've done that, get yourself a tea towel and wipe around the vicinity so that it's thoroughly clean for the person to use. Your washing up bowl should be placed upside down in the sink so that all the water can drain off of it. When the top of your dish is a golden brown, you can then take it out the oven or the grill. This is now very hot, so please be aware that you shouldn't be touching this. When we are storing this, we'd need to put it somewhere like on a pot stand or something like that, so that it allows it to cool and it doesn't burn any surfaces. Your teacher might ask you to do the cooking stage at home, in which case you would repeat this part of the video at home. This will then be left to cool and is available for you to pick up at the end of the day.